Hi, this is Moby. Welcome to the Fire Show. For Startup Week 2017 in Austin, I collaborated with MediaTech Ventures to launch a free community podcast studio and bring in media entrepreneurs, executives, and creators across Texas and beyond for interviews. This particular interview is with Mike Cronin, technology reporter for Austin-American Statesman. He's an award-winning investigative journalist with 2 decades of experience across technology, startups, finance, growth, space, government, so much. He's won awards like the Peabody, the duPont Gold Baton, the duPont Silver Baton, and a Murrow, and others. In this episode, where we go into the backstage of tech journalism, we talk about the culture of tech and entrepreneurship journalism, how that's changing and the trends that he's seen, Mike's experiences with feeling buried under work and getting over that, his systems organizing content, his writing, and communicating with people. And lastly, how to reach out to reporters. Enjoy. Oh, wait. So you'll notice that I ask Mike at the end how to best reach him and other reporters. And that was very useful, but I thought I'd add on to that. So next week will be an episode from Sujan Patel, serial entrepreneur, speaker, author, writer, where he talks about how to send out successful PR pitches. Listen to this and then listen to Sujan. Enjoy. Welcome to the Startup Studio at Galvanize. My name is Moby from The Fire Show, and this episode is produced by MediaTech Ventures. Hey, Mike.
Moby, how's it going?
Good. Let's talk about you covering startups in Austin. How long have you been doing that? You've been doing that before you were in Austin.
Yes, I've been covering startups formally, I guess, since October 2014, but I was doing it in Asheville, North Carolina, which has a embryonic ecosystem of startups. It's trying to get to be a scene so people who are tired of living in giant cities can go there and know I'll be able to work with talented people. That was my first experience. Tech, on the other hand, I've been covering for more than a decade, and merging the two here is fun because about 95% of the startup coverage I do are the tech startups, since there's so much in the sector, followed by the evolving and growing consumer product market.
So I've only been in the U.S. for a while, and I think it was 2012 or 13 when I started reading TechCrunch and even learned about tech entrepreneurship. And I've seen this rise in the culture, the pop culture and entrepreneurship, when we kind of have entrepreneurs and look up to entrepreneurs. How long has that been the case in just pop culture in Austin or in the U.S. that you've seen that entrepreneurs are glorified in that way? In a good way, of course. We look up to them.
Well, that's a great question. Actually, the phenomenon of glorifying tech startup founders is recent. When I say recent, I would say with the emergence of people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Larry Ellison. Some of them weren't beloved by the masses, like Steve Jobs was admired except by apparently those who knew him very well. And a few people have actually written columns and explored this, what they say is an unhealthy admiration of these people, because they are now treated like rock stars. Today, if you're the founder of a company and the CEO of a company like Google, or if you're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, you have groupies in a sense. And that phenomenon is, I would say, less than 2 decades old. maybe a little bit longer if you were talking about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. But in terms of America's appreciation and admiration of entrepreneurs, I think that's existed since the beginning of the country, because that is what everyone was and tried to be until corporations became corporations. But small businesses and entrepreneurs have historically generated the most jobs.
You were talking about Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, and now they have memes about them. Right when Jeff Bezos bought Whole Foods, there was a photo of him from 1995. He was just a younger guy, and he was balding, he was skinny in a shirt, and he looked very friendly. And then you move on, and then it's 2017, and he's buff as hell, shaved head, and he's like, I can buy whatever I want. That's cool, but it does create the idea that being an entrepreneur is for the sake of being called an entrepreneur. And people and I'm talking about the younger generation and me and the people around me, which is just putting the title CEO on Twitter, just having it on your card, 3 months in your company. That's not the right way to go around starting a business. So moving on from just talking about tech entrepreneurship and your process of writing, I write maybe once every 2 weeks, and I hate it. It's frustrating. I can't understand how people do it for a living and not want to have coffee all the time, or just go out all the time. How much do you write a day?
This job is different because though we are a traditionally weekly publication in the print world, online we operate like a daily news organization. What that means for me is that I am a daily news reporter, and I write at least one story a day, and sometimes more. And I'm always working on other things, other pieces, longer pieces that are due later simultaneously. At this publication, because we're a very small staff, we literally only have 3 reporters, and then we have 3 editors and a researcher, and that's it. That's extraordinarily small. That's easily the smallest operation I've worked for in my 20 years as a journalist. And we write a lot. We write so much that I have to write on the weekends. In fact, I wrote Saturday and Sunday. I wrote 4 stories this weekend because this week is startup week, and I wanted to make sure I didn't fall behind.
And you're the first interview. It's great. How long is a story?
It depends. Sometimes a story can be 100 words or 200 words, and other times I've written 2 stories that are between 4,000 and 5,000 words. Those 2, one was on women in tech, and that was a cover story in June, and it was online, a package of multiple stories. And then I just did a story on the lack of diversity in tech in Austin that came out a month ago or so, and that had fewer elements online, but also was a big package. So it can range. It depends on what we're covering and why we're writing it.
I'm not going to assume the answer, but do you feel that you're in a position to see trends in tech and entrepreneurship and this industry before they come up in the light? And do you feel that's kind of your responsibility to bring them to your readers?
That's definitely my responsibility. I'm not where I'd like to be. As a new reporter in Austin, I'm still learning the players and the system and how companies evolve, how entrepreneurs learn to be entrepreneurs, how this city is different than other cities. So I hope to be the reporter, if I do my job well and cultivate relationships with the people in the startup ecosystem, that I can be the reporter that writes about trends or a new company or a new startup founder that might disrupt something, his or her respective sector, before anyone else. I was lucky enough to do that on Friday. I wrote about a company called Dosh, and several big national players believe that this company could be huge, and it could be big enough that when people talk about Dosh, they'll think about Austin in the same way that people think about Amazon in Seattle or Microsoft in Seattle.
Dosh, how do you spell that?
DOSH, and it's a slang word for cash.
Interesting. I gotta check that out. So jumping back to something you mentioned, that you have a certain number of reporters and you write a lot. The shift from readers consuming more digital information than in print, how much pressure are you in every day to constantly churn out content? And how do you make sure it's quality over quantity?
Those are two good questions. All of us talk frequently. We communicate constantly about what is worth writing, because we can't cover everything since we are such a small staff. And tech is so ubiquitous in Austin. There are many good tech stories or worthwhile tech stories that I never even get to. So I try to find the best ones with the help of my colleagues and write those. And if I don't get to important ones, I hope to get to those in the future. And quality is something that I don't ever sacrifice quality over quantity. If it means that a story doesn't get done, then I won't do it, because I'm not going to put my name on something that is not my best. That doesn't mean that it is as thoroughly reported as a longer story or an in-depth piece, but I want to make sure the fundamentals are covered. For example, it always has to be accurate, and it always has to bring some type of quote unquote business intelligence to the folks who are reading it. That's the audience, are other business people, other entrepreneurs, other executives, and they have to see value in the stories that will help them do their jobs or run their companies or start a company. That's what I'm trying to provide if I'm doing my job.
So how many times do you get pitched a week?
Too many.
Too many.
I have so many unanswered emails, and I constantly have to talk to people when I see them finally in person or on the phone that I have not been ignoring you. It's literally because I have not even seen the email because I get so many, or I did not return your phone call because I'm writing other stories and I'm buried. And that stinks, because in other jobs that was not a problem. But I think that it's simply because we have a specific focus and a target audience of business people, and then my beat is within that population of startups, tech folks, and finance people. So everybody has a PR company and they're all pitching me, and then sometimes they also pitch me. So sometimes I will get an email from an executive, and then the internal PR person, and then the external PR person about the same company, about the same story. So I say, if it's really, really, really important, please email, call, text, and I will make sure that I get on it. Because if you just email me, I might completely miss it. I also say, please CC my editors, because then one of us will definitely get to it.
How do you not feel buried and in a constant state of, oh my God, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this all the time?
In the recent few weeks, that's precisely how I've been feeling. But that's mainly because we had one of our colleagues move to DC. So we've been down a reporter, meaning we only have 2 reporters. So the rest of us have to pick up the slack. So that has been unusual because all of us have to do other additional work to make sure that everything gets done. Normally, though, you come to a place where you simply just accept you can't do it all, and that's okay. And you want to make sure that if it's important, you get on top of it. And the key is to also communicate to the people that you're writing about and for. So if a story that they're expecting about them is not coming, I call them and say, here's the situation. I'm definitely going to write about you. It's being pushed back because of this and that and the other thing. So as long as I'm doing that and maintaining good relationships so they trust me and they know that I will eventually get to it, it's okay. And sometimes you simply say, right now I cannot do this because I already have all these other stories, and this type of story is low on our priority list. And that's unfortunate, but it's the reality.
Setting expectations part. That reminds me of just starting things small and doing the small things right. When you're communicating with stakeholders, I tell one of my friends this, and it's very small, and I give him so much crap for that. That if you told me that you'll pick me up at 7, if you're going to be late, please text me and tell me what's going to happen. And that's what you got to do in any kind of situation, regardless of whether you're late for a friend or you're building a relationship based on trust. Or, for example, I interviewed the CEO of Right Austin, and we talked about South by Southwest. And I asked, so the servers crashed for a bit, and what happened? And he just said, listen, when that happens, when that moment comes, you tell people honestly what's happening. You tell your writers, you tell your users. In your case, you tell the people that you're writing about that, hey, this isn't going to happen. Just communicating and setting those expectations. How many people get pissed off at that?
Very few. I think that when I fall down on that responsibility, that's when they get irritated, and I don't blame them. Having this conversation right now reminds me that I owe some people some emails.
You want a piece of paper so you can write it?
Right, exactly. So it's not that they're angry. It's more that they are disappointed because they want their company or their idea to be out there. And I also want it to be out there. And it's my responsibility, though, to prioritize and let them know this is what's happening, here's why it's happening, and then they understand, even if they're bummed out. So if I don't do my job, though, and communicate, as you said, it's about maintaining relationships. Everything in our lives is about maintaining relationships. So if I just go MIA and don't tell them what's going on, then that's my responsibility, and I have to take that on myself and be accountable.
You just mentioned while you were talking, hey, that reminds me I have to do a story. Do you have a system that you keep everything that you have to do in there, like paper or digital or something like that? Because, for example, I had last week, and I had a few things to do, and I know I'll kind of take it easy on the weekend, and this, whatever I didn't do, I won't. And I'll come back and then look at my task management system and say, oh my God, I missed that. What about you? How do you keep track of everything?
Well, that's a great question. So I've covered tech on and off for about a decade, as I said earlier, and I have friends who constantly tease me because despite being the tech reporter, I don't know how to use a lot of tech, and this astounds people. And I have to explain, I don't cover tech as a gadget guy or someone who works for Gizmodo, for example. They'll cover the iPhone latest version coming out, or another publication like that will cover the most recent Dell computer laptop and go really into all the specs and things like that. I cover technology and how it interfaces with society, how it influences the way you and I live our lives. And when the iPhone came out, I wrote how I was living in Pittsburgh, and I wrote a story about how smartphones were altering students, for example, and their behavior in classes. And professors had to adapt to that either by saying, no smartphones in class, put them away, or incorporate them into the classroom and into the teaching. So to get back to your question, I don't use tech at all when I'm organizing my time. I still write it down in a paper calendar, because if I don't write it down, that's part of helping me remember. And I have to, again, the same thing. If I write down, I'm writing a story about Moby, but then Amazon announces that their second headquarters is going to be based in Austin, I have to write that first. So I will jump on that. And then when I'm finished, I'll call you and say, I have to push the story about you back. And like you, if I don't work a little bit on the weekend and Monday comes around, I'm behind the eight ball. So that's not a good feeling. So if I have to work, and what I've learned also as I've gotten older is that everybody who wants to do well in their job works on the weekend. It's the unusual job that you actually get to always take Saturday and Sunday off.
You can't always disengage. That's really interesting. I find that the process of writing down on paper. So in my house, I'm kind of a crazy person. I have these huge pieces of paper in which I've written down stuff that's important to me, and they're all over. At one time, I had 7, and it looked crazy. And then I had to tell a few people who were coming over, "Hey, I'm not crazy. You know, I'm not insane. This is normal. This is just how I think." So, shifting gears and talking about getting your attention, because in this economy, in tech, attention matters, right? Money flows after attention. And if someone wants to get your attention, and if they're new and they start a company, what's the usual way that someone thinks is the best way to contact you, and how does that not work? Because, for example, you'll get like 100 email requests of a similar type today. What's the wrong way to reach out to you?
If your idea is not well formed or it's not newsworthy, then it's probably a good idea to wait to contact me. There's no wrong mode of communication with me, meaning it's okay to email, call, or text. But if I do see it and read it, and it is not about Austin, for example, if I get a New York-based PR person pitching a story about some expert who's based in Sioux Falls and it has nothing to do with Austin, I don't understand what that person's doing because they clearly aren't doing their job. And that actually happens frequently. If it's an Austin-based person and they're not used to working with reporters, the best thing to do is to try to talk to some folks that have. Or if I'm somewhere at an event, come and talk to me. And what I'll tell you is, I want to hear all the ideas that you have, and I want to hear about your company. And then my editors and I decide by prioritizing what is the most newsworthy idea and pitch. The only time it's not good is if the idea is not something that would be important enough to get my attention. If sometimes people don't know also, the Austin Business Journal doesn't write about, generally we don't write about a new product coming out by a company unless it's a transformative product, or it's so new and the company is changing the arena in which it operates, then I'll write about the product. For example, Incytome is a genetics testing company that you can get your DNA tested, but it's not for medical reasons or health reasons or any scary reasons. It's just to tell you fun things about your ancestry and why your body does what it does or looks like it does or metabolizes, things like that. So it tells you your own story. And
what's the company called?
It's called Incytome. It's
in Austin?
Yes. Okay. And it just launched a few months ago, and its second product is coming out tomorrow. So I have to write that story today, and I interviewed the folks last week. And since it's since this company is doing something that no other company is doing, they're telling a story with DNA rather than health or medical things, then I am covering that product. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
And so the newsworthy part is having a well-formed idea and having an impact in whatever you're doing, a tangible impact in which you either change the industry or change how customers in your market possibly interact with the industry.
That's part of it. And also if it's important to the Austin economy, if it's creating jobs, if it's bringing more people here, if you are helping the Austin economy in any way, I'll probably write about it.
So if I boil it down, and so you're in front of me right now and we're doing this interview, but hypothetically, if I wanted to reach out to you and we had not met and I wanted to get you on a podcast, what would be a way to get your attention? Email,
call, text. And if I don't answer, keep doing it if you have a good idea.
Yeah. That's what I keep hearing. That's how I interviewed the mayor. I just called Barbara Sack again and again and again and emailed her. And then I interviewed someone who has a TV show in Boxtown. And he's in entrepreneurship and he gets a lot of requests every day. And I asked him the same question. He says, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Follow up. Following up is not a weakness. It's just being like, hey, I know you're busy. I just want to reach out again and again. And I need to get better at that. Mike, thank you so much for doing this. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks, Moby. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and let's see how much coffee we drink at Startup Week.
Okay, deal. Yeah.